It's 8:30 and I'd like to welcome everybody to the 7th of March meeting of Te Puna Kōrero. Can we start? Can I invite Taku Parai to open the meeting with the karakia? Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, let's move to apologies, and we have some apologies today. First apology is from Councillor Waddle on baby duties. We have Councillor Nalo and Councillor Philo both with us on Zoom. So I'd like to move the apologies. Thank you very much, Councillor Hayward. All those in favour? Carried. Right. Public forum. Today we have no public forum, and therefore let's move to any conflict of interest declarations. No conflict of interest declarations.
Just to know, Mr. Chair, obviously there's two people sitting in the gallery there that will be presenting, probably on behalf of Ngāti Toa. So, you know, I'll just raise their hand and whatever they put across the table.
Sorry? Yeah. I know, I understood that was for the workshop.
Yeah, that's for the workshop later.
No.
Yeah.
Understood. That's very good. Thank you. So we're up to conflicts of interest. There were none, and we'll move on to notifications of extraordinary business. There are none of that either. So that moves us to the confirmation of minutes of the meeting of Te Puna Kōrero of the 29th of February. I'm going to move the minutes. Do I have a... Yeah, there is a change to the minutes that Councillor Trillin will... and that change... Do you want to talk to it, Councillor Trillin?
Yeah, sure. So just noting under the minutes, the alcohol fees bylaw, so on page 7, currently the resolution 2 was option 4 presented as the agreed upon option. The wording we used in the meeting was option 4 presented as the preferred option. So just noting that.
Thank you. Any discussion around that? No? Any other changes to the minutes? I will then...
Did he second it?
Yeah, you've seconded it as well. We've got them. Yeah, I will move the minutes with that change to use the word preferred instead of agreed. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. I was going to... I think I've changed my mind now. We're going to... we do have an adjournment that will take place at 8:40 to enable us to commence the extraordinary meeting and then close it again. We can either move to the first item on the agenda, which I think I'll do. We'll probably have the option to cut that off midstream if we don't get through it. So let's move to reports, item 7.1. And this item is reserve land classifications. I'll move the report to get it on the table. Do I have a second to Mayor Baker? Thank you very much. Now, can I ask, Matt, that if you want to just describe this very briefly, what we're actually doing here in terms of it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward, but councillors may have a few questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and tēnā koutou katoa, everybody. This report covers land vested through subdivision from 2021 to 2023. That land is vested through development for the purpose of becoming reserve. The next step in this process, which this paper covers, is to seek committee approval to gazette those proposed classifications, which that will essentially complete the reserve classification process and will secure the land parcels identified in the report as reserve.
Thank you, Matt. Are there any questions by councillors? So this seems pretty straightforward.
Anything to do with putting land into reserves, that's an important item. Has it been run past?
Through the chair, a lot of these not directly. I know the land parcels vested from Aotea, which are named Te Tau o Aotea, Ngāti Toa contributed that name or gifted that name to council. And as I understand it, Ngāti Toa are often involved in the resource consent processes, which create the reserve parcels. And so this is the last stage in that process. So the classifications themselves have not, no.
Can I just ask, sorry, Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, just looking at the two options, with option 2 it says approving this option would result in a breach of the council's statutory obligations. Is that really an option?
Rock and a hard place stuff, right? Can I ask a question, Matt? When you look at the photographs, and maybe it's an age thing, some of these things look really weird in terms of where they are, and can you just explain that a little bit?
Through the chair, just for clarity, would you like me to run through each of the parcels, or are there specific ones?
No, I just as I was going through, I mean the first the Polestar Lane. So the rest of that bush, the bush scrubland, what designation does that have?
Sure. So yeah, that land was vested from a development at 9 Polestar Lane. I think I put that through the committee in 2021 to acquire that land.
Yep.
They subdivided it off.
Yep.
It was basically a historical artefact. They'd owned that sort of dogleg section on either side of that. The bush to the north and the south is council reserve.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
So that's council reserve.
We thought it made sense to
Yep.
to bring those in, to bring that last parcel in and connect those reserves. And some of them, they look pretty bare in
Yeah.
these aerial
Yes,
photos.
exactly.
So that's a function of our GIS. We haven't got updated aerials, so a lot of these, thinking about particularly the ones in Kinapiru
Yep.
and Te Tau o Aotea, a lot of that area is planted up now.
And the areas in Te Tau o Aotea is the bits that aren't within the blue line already council reserve as well. So there's a few little bushy bits there on page 15 at the bottom.
Yes, so that's right. So these are vested at kind of different times and stages of the
Right.
development. So as I understand it, yes, those bushy bits to the south are council reserve, and then the one below that was a massive piece of Bothamley Park that we were effectively managing as Bothamley Park, but
Right.
has now been vested from Caris, the developer.
Okay. No, that clarifies it for me. Yeah. So are there any other questions from councillors? All right. I'm now... Oh, sorry. Yes, Councillor Philo. Be quick. Sorry.
Sorry, I couldn't find the hands up button fast enough, so I had to put my own one up. Thanks, Matt. Just a question of clarification for my just to deepen my understanding. With regards to the cost, can you just give a quick synopsis of the breakdown of that 6,000? Like, what's it made up of?
Through the chair, thank you for the question. Yes, that cost is essentially legal fees. So if this report is approved, then we draft up essentially a schedule, which is lodged with our lawyers, who then lodge it into the Gazette, and there's fees associated with that. And there's also fees associated with the classification through LINS as well.
Thanks, Matt. Sorry, is that... we just have to...
Yep, thanks,
I
Matt.
spoke too long. Well, I'm being pushed here from one side. No, it's 8:40. It's 8:40.
To the chair, I need to take 5 seconds. In our standing orders at the back of the page, it always recognises the treaty principles, which I think makes sure that we do run through that principles through the iwi.
That's a good point. Thank you, Taku. Noted. I'm now going to put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. I'm now, I'll adjourn the meeting of Te Puna Kōrero to allow the extraordinary council meeting to open, and when that's open and closed, we'll resume the meeting. Mayor Baker.
Open the extraordinary meeting, please. And now I would like to adjourn it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Baker. All right, moving right along. So we'll now move to item 7.2, which is appeals on decisions of requiring authorities on designations in our proposed district plan. I'd like to move the item to get it onto the table. Do I have a seconder, please? Yes, Councillor Ford. Thank you very much. So we got... Yep, thank you, Helen. So, do you want to just briefly tell us what we're doing here in terms of, I think it's pretty clear, but you might like to summarise or add any points that of clarification for us.
Yeah, sure. It's I'm going to apologise first off for the kind of planning language, because it's quite hard to simplify this, but we've tried as best we can. So essentially, Kiwi Rail and Radio New Zealand have, they make the decision on the designations rather than council or the hearings panel, and they've decided to not go with the recommendation of the hearings panel. Now, the council officer for that report was actually Rory, beside me, and he had recommended exactly what the requiring authorities, Kiwi Rail and Radio New Zealand, are actually doing in here. So, in actual fact, officers are in favour of what Kiwi Rail and Radio New Zealand have actually decided, essentially. So, but we wanted to bring it to you because the decision as to whether or not to appeal the decision of Kiwi Rail and Radio New Zealand rests with this committee. We recommend not to appeal it. We think that these designations have been in place for a very long time. We've never had any issues with Kiwi Rail or Radio New Zealand. And in fact, when we've had meetings with them about this, they have said there's, they can't even see a reason why they would ever want to demolish any heritage buildings or remove unnecessary native bush. It's not in their psyche to do that, and we've not experienced that over the years. If they did want to do that, the requiring authorities believe that they have to put in what's called an outline plan approval, and it's kind of like a resource consent type process. So we've got the ability to do something about it at that stage. There is some conflicting case law around that, but it's clear that the requiring authorities actually believe they have to do that process, so we're kind of going with that at the moment.
Good, thank you very much, Helen. And now, councillors, are there any questions? Councillor Trillin.
Yeah, just some process questions. Broadly support the paper, no problems there. First, around that issue of they believe they have to do that plan, but there's conflicting case law. Is the position strengthened in any way by the fact that their active justification for going against the recommendation of the hearings panel is the existence of that? Would we be able to use that in the event that there was a problem? If they've said, we don't need this because we will do this plan? Or can they just turn around at a later date and say, actually, we've changed our mind, we don't have to do this plan now?
I'm actually not sure of the answer to that. It's kind of a legal question. What I would say is that my experience with Kiwi Rail, especially, is that they always go through their outline plan approval. There's been, like one case where this has kind of been brought into question, and they know about that case, and they've still written in the letter to us that they would go through an outline plan approval. So I guess it's more like a trust issue rather than a legal one for us.
More of an academic problem than a real problem, maybe.
Yes, but I guess our more for us is that there's never been an issue, and this has been in the plan for 20 odd years or whatever it is, and we've never had any problems. That doesn't mean we won't have a problem in the future, but it's not in their interests to go ahead and do something without getting outline plan approval.
Okay.
So it's only a small number of things that the outline plan approval might not apply to, and that is where it's not considered to be construction, and those things are kind of removing bush and so forth, but we have got rules that they would have to comply with in the district plan in those instances anyway.
Okay. The other quick question I had in terms of process from here, so if council makes a decision contrary to what the IHP recommends, we have to get ministerial sign-off. Do they have to do the same thing? Is there a process they have to go through here? So my understanding was if we went against the IHP recommendations, we'd have to get ministerial sign-off. I just wonder if they have to do the same.
No, it's a totally different process for requiring authority. It's designation.
Okay, cool. But yeah, in that case, particularly given what you've just said, happy to support the report as recommended.
Yeah, thanks for that question, Councillor Trillin. Mayor Baker.
It's really just to support the paper. Don't want to go down the ideas of appealing anything just for the cost. Everything's been good up to date. Agree with what the officers have written. So thank you for the report. I'm supporting it.
Any other questions, councillors? I've just got one small question. I mean, I support the report as well. Very logical. Why would we try and not do this? The historic building. So it seems to me that there are always difficulties around these sorts of edifices. If Radio New Zealand wanted to, say, for example, that building must, unless they spend a lot of money on it at some stage, outgrow its used by date, and they may want to build another building. I mean, I don't know. I'm just putting it up for discussion. What would happen in that case?
Much easier question, thank you. So Radio New Zealand have told us that they have spent money on that building, and this is one of the reasons that we feel quite confident that they're not going to demolish it. They've spent money on it, and it houses their equipment and artefacts. If they want to build something else, they would need an outline plan approval, and it would have to be in line with the purpose of the designation. So it would have to, be something for Radio New Zealand's, kind of purposes.
Right.
So we would get to see that, and we would be able to have a say.
Very good. Councillor Hayward.
Sorry for another question that might be curly, but kia ora, officers, and thank you for the report. If I'm relatively comfortable with regards to the position of Kiwi Rail and the land parcels that are related to this. With regards to for today, what would happen in the situation where Radio New Zealand choose to vest the assets with another provider, say Tangata Whenua? Are they obligated under these terms to hold onto that arrangement, or would there have to be some new process? I'm not talking about any future use of the land or any development of the land. I'm just saying about the existing land parcel as it is. Would they be required to maintain the obligations that we are allowing if we approve this recommendation?
So I think I'm understanding your question correctly. If the land came under different ownership, for example, that the process would be different unless that other owner was a requiring authority under the Act. So Tangata whenua would not be a requiring authority. So what that would mean, so for example, if iwi owned it, that land, it would revert to the zoning, that is the underlying zoning of the land, and we wouldn't be talking about this designation process at all. It would be the normal proposed district plan, resource consent process.
So just so I'm clear, there's no incumbent on iwi should the land be transferred to them by Radio New Zealand in terms of what has been discussed here.
Not to my knowledge. What do you think, Rory? I can't think of anything.
No, through the chair. Yeah, so the designation is for the requiring authority and only for the purpose that it has been designated for, which is in this case telecommunications. So if the underlying land was transferred to iwi, the use of that land would, as Helen has said, would just go through the normal district plan processes, and the designation wouldn't matter.
Okay, I'm satisfied with that answer.
Okay.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hayward. Okay, I think that's useful discussion because it is a little bit tricky, and I mean I thought your explanation was good, even though you had to read it closely. So, all right, is there any other discussion or questions? In that case, I'll move the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. All right, that brings us to the end of the Te Puna Kōrero meeting, and I declare it closed at 8:51, just noting that the closing karakia will be at the end of the workshop. Thank you.
Council meeting. Apologies from Councillor Waddle, and it looks like Councillor Nalo's gone as well. Are you there, Councillor Nalo?
I'm
No?
here. I was
Oh, you
trying to
are.
have
You're not showing on the screen, sorry. Okay, so apologies from Councillor Waddle, so I'll move that. Who's going to second it? Councillor Trillin, thank you. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Any conflict of interest declarations? Nope. No reports of extraordinary business. So we go straight to our report. Revenue and financing policy update. I'll move that to put that in the table. Seconded by Councillor Ford. Well, sorry, you had. Okay, so Graham, should we hand it over to you? Sorry, Jim?
I'll just introduce it briefly, okay? So this is a follow-up from last year's conversations in November and December. So what effectively has happened here is that we've now taken into account all the decisions that Council has made prior to Christmas into the LTP analytical model. And so these are the numbers that come out the other end. So there may be some surprises in here, but what Graham has done he's included a table in the beginning of the report which shows the major changes and in the shaded areas, and I think that's really helpful because it's quite a long paper. And so we're open to any questions around those. I mean, I could make a few notes about some observations if you wish.
Sure. Yes, please.
Yeah, okay. So I think the first one I would say is that it's quite interesting, area pools and events. You have the arena fees and charges going down. Aquatic facilities are actually going up. I don't understand the rationale behind that, but that's what the model's showing at the moment. I'll go through the various ones first, and then you can ask Graham some questions. I guess the other one which struck me is in the bottom line, the parks and reserves. The cemeteries and crematorium has gone down substantially, even though this is in terms of public fees, even though we're putting more emphasis on private use. So that to me also seems a little bit unusual. The third one, and I just point out, which is on page 7 of Diligent, that the alcohol licensing policy, the assumption we've made in the analysis was that fees would go up over 3 years. So we can post-consultation, depending on which option you want to go with, as discussed previously, that can be amended, but the range is appropriate. I guess the fourth item I would point out or raise is the curbside recycling. So you can see the fees and charges there substantially less than previously. Those are my main points, so I'll leave that
Open up for
to
questions then. Yep, Councillor Ford.
Sorry, I was under the understanding that you might give us some commentary around why, or someone might around those, because they were similar. When I went through this report, those were the things that sort of screamed out at me, was around that the difference in that, but also
Why did that happen?
why did it happen? How did we arrive there?
Okay.
The democratic services, or sorry, democracy. It's why is there no shift in that space as well?
Look, I'm going to ask Graham to talk to this, I think, because this is when you do the analysis, rates is the balancing act. So it's a little bit formulaic. So perhaps, Graham, do you want to explain?
Yep, thank you, through the chair. The overall thing, as Jim's mentioned, is that this has now been modelled through the LTP model, taking into account all the decisions which council has made prior to Christmas. The other thing is that this is now over a 10-year period. When we did the workshops with you last year, what we were working with was the last 2 years' actuals and the current annual plan. So that was a 3-year window. We've now taken this over the LTP 10-year period. The underlying change across that 10-year period, which is affecting most of the changes in the ratios, is that over the 10-year period, we have a 2% fee assumption for the non-regulatory functions and a 5% for the regulatory functions. However, inflation is higher than those numbers across the 10 years. So what happens across the 10 years is that the amount of rate funding of most of the activities is being increased as the fees reduce because of the difference between the inflation assumptions and the fee assumptions. So that means that at the start, you'll have a higher fee percentage, and across the 10 years, that fee percentage will reduce. So the ranges have to cover that period, that 10-year period range. That's the biggest thing which has affected things. As Jim's mentioned, with the rubbish and recycling, we're now assuming that there's the curbside recycling, and we've assumed that that's a targeted rate, so that one there had a big impact. The other one which had an impact was through the resource consents and monitoring. We put in the LTP assumption there was an extra 750,000 of revenue, and that's increased that percentage for the resource consents and monitoring up from the 45 to 55 from what was there previously. In terms of the cemeteries and crematoriums, which came up as a question, that again is that at the beginning of the LTP, the first year, the fees are just over 50%. So when we put them into ranges, we range it up to the closest 5% up and 5% down. So that's where you get the 55. However, because inflation is higher than the 2% assumption, by the time you get across 10 years, it falls back down to just within the 30 to 35. So we've got to go down to the lowest 5% range. So it's trying to put them in ranges as close as possible, but having some allowance both on the downside and the upside. That's the sort of a general...
Explain that to the residents.
Sorry?
Thank you.
Okay.
Josh, have you got any more? Sorry? No, Josh.
Yeah, sorry, just within that context, could you elaborate a little bit further around the aquatic facilities? And in particular, the reason why, because I understand what you're saying, so I wonder why the percentage for fees and charges for the aquatic facilities have gone up. And also, could you just explain the exact difference here between Te Rauparaha Arena and aquatic facilities? Is that specifically Cannons Creek Pool?
No, this is a bit of a complicated one. So, when we did the last 2 years' actuals, it had COVID. And we've now got out of COVID, and COVID impacted those areas quite considerably on the fees. So, we've now come out of that, and when we did the annual plan, I had assumptions around what the revenue would be before we actually closed off last year's accounts, and we've actually got more than what we thought through the annual plan process. So it's been a pick-up in those areas post-COVID in terms of the volumes coming back. For when we were using it previously was around the actuals. That's the main reason. So that picks it up to, for the aquatic facilities to get to the 40%, which is the top end of the range of the fee range. Again, then across the 10 years, inflation is higher than the fee assumption of 2%. So then it reduces down to the 30% at the end of year 10. So it's no change really in the fee revenue, it's the volumes post-COVID to now.
Okay, cool. So that's actually a positive thing. It shows that more people are using the pool, so more people are paying the fees as opposed to the fees going up.
Correct.
Okay, cool. Good then.
Any other questions? Mike?
Yeah, Graham, that's fantastic.
It's quite complicated.
Absolutely, it is.
Yeah.
My question it's on page 23 actually. When we talk about wastewater, we talk about funding in the third to last line. It says recovered through a targeted rate per pan, and it's not through per pan, is it? It's just one pan a household. And I wondered if we shouldn't put that right.
No, because with commercial, our schools, there is more than one pan charge.
But for the average ratepayer, it's one pan a house, isn't it?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, Taku.
Graham, how do you rate the community priorities and community outcomes? I noticed the harbours in there on quite a few. I'd like to lift that rate up if I could, in terms of priority standing.
That's a council decision regarding those, and that's what we went through in the workshops last year, was around the private benefit portions, and that's a council decision.
Jeff?
Just following on from that, maybe I'm just want to make sure I've got the Kaumatua's position on it. Is it that the mention of Te Awarua or Porirua is mentioned so far down the table? Perhaps the reason why, and I would like officers to confirm, is that all of the categories are listed alphabetically.
Correct.
Correct. Sorry, I misunderstood that. I've just done this in alphabetical order, so it's easy to follow.
Right. Okay. Because I don't want us to be I certainly would not want it to appear like it was put down the order paper for the fact and for importance. Unfortunately.
Well, we could put it under H for harbour and then put the name at the end. Bring it up.
Yeah.
If you would like that.
Oh, sorry, there was one question. With regards to the policy, this is all obviously contingent on decisions that are to be made in the LTP. What happens if any of the items that are affected by this, say for instance, curbside recycling, is not approved through the LTP? This policy would have to be then amended subsequently as well. Is that correct? And if that's the case, does that get done as part of the LTP or as a separate process afterwards?
Thank you for the question. It's a good question. No, when council will go out for consultation. Following consultation, the council will go through the deliberation process. We will then take those decisions which council makes in that deliberation process, run them back through the model, come back again to the revenue financing policy. If we need to, we will amend the revenue financing policy to fit within what the final decisions are made, and that will come back to council on the 30th of June, I think it is, and have to be adopted by council. This has to agree with what the LTP is saying. That's the statutory requirement. Thank you. Thank you. That's a good question.
Any other questions? Okay, all those in favour? All those against? Carried. That brings us to the end of the meeting, 9:05. Thank you very much. We will just